Laptop boy.
Now, I've known about Umamusume for a while. This is not going to be one of those videos that says the new horse girl game takes the world by storm. I know the game isn't new. I've known about Umamusume since it came out. Well, at least since the original anime came out. And I think I just stumbled upon the game when looking up the anime. And when I first saw the gameplay, I didn't get it. And it's kind of a game that you have to get your hands on in order to understand. If you just see the middle of a race, you're going to be thinking, what are the controls? What the heck is going on? How do you play this game? And obviously, if you look at the Japanese version of the training sections, you're not going to know what's going on either. You're going to have no clue. And that's kind of where I landed. I saw the game, didn't really get it. Obviously, it was all in Japanese too, so there was no real easy way to play it. And that's not because I'm unfamiliar with APKs. And there is another game that I'll talk about later that I did download using this method. The anime wasn't really my thing. Maybe if the game and anime came out more in my prime anime years, I'd be more into the sort of idol master kind of stuff. But at this point, even a few years ago, I was pretty much done. But when the game finally got a global release announcement, I was kind of interested in it. I think it also helped that they released the Cinderella Grey anime on YouTube, which is where anime should have just always been. Whoever was the genius behind that decision needs a pay raise. But Cinderella Grey was kind of bringing me into it. It was not so much an idol-y kind of, I don't know, I just could not get past the first episode of that first season. It just wasn't my bag. But Cinderella Grey was way more sports anime focused. The animation went crazy too, so that also helped. So with the announcement of Global and the release of Cinderella Grey, I was kind of feeling like giving the game a shot. I haven't played a traditional gacha game like this in a while. I'm not unfamiliar with Psy games. They did put out probably my favorite gacha game of all time, Dragalia Lost. And this was the game I had to learn installing APKs with. When it launched in America, it took 3 to 6 months to launch in Canada, and I was not waiting. I had to play that game. So I'm totally familiar with their systems, their pull rates, kind of their way of releasing characters. And I see people talking about how generous Psy games are with Umamusume, but man, you don't know anything if you weren't there for Dragalia Lost. And I could totally talk about that game forever, but this is not that kind of video. Closing down Dragalia Lost left a huge hole in my heart, and I was willing to fill it with this. I'm willing to give it a fair shot. Obviously, I'm going into this game free to play. Being familiar with Dragalia Lost, I kind of already knew the best ways to use your resources. If you know Dragalia, they would do these Gala Dragalia limited banners. And these were really the only banners you had to pull on, since these were the only banners with limited characters besides the holiday events. So as long as you saved up enough resources, you could pretty much get any and all characters you wanted. Umamusume looks very similar, except everything just gets added to the pool. There's no real limited time availability, but with the global release being behind and having an accelerated release schedule, I wanted to know when and where I should pull. And there was actually a ton of info. It was not difficult to figure out who and what is kind of ideal to spend your currency on. So that's probably the biggest benefit of being 4 years behind. And I don't know how long it's going to take to catch up. I would imagine we're on double pace, so maybe 2 years to catch up. And all of this was just in preparation for the global release. Man, could you imagine if Dragalia Lost didn't get shut down? It would have been 6 or 7 years old now. What a cruel world. The game finally dropped. I already have it pre-downloaded. I pre-registered, booted it up, and they actually give you a pretty lengthy tutorial. They just kind of blitz you with all this information and keep you on rails until you're done. I just wanted out and into the real game as soon as possible. But almost immediately after starting my very first run, something hit that part of my brain. I get it. Like I said at the start, it's something you really have to get your hands on in order to understand what is going on. It just lit this spark at the back of my mind. This is something that I've wanted for so long. And I'm not the only person who put the similarities together. I even tweeted this out on release day, so I'm not taking this from somebody else. This game feels like Chow Racing. I even said this feels like the Chow Racing app we never got. I meant Chow Garden, but whatever. It's the same thing. And if anyone wants to say like Sega owns like 33% of Psy games, so technically they did put one out, like whatever, I don't care. And if they don't, man, Sega left a lot of money on the table. Sega putting a Chow Garden in the next Sonic game is the determining factor if I buy it or not. That's how much I want this. You got us all with Generations, but come on, you fed us years of slop. Of course we're gonna buy that one. Give us what we really want. Give the people what they want. I did also see the comparisons to Monster Rancher. I've only played Monster Rancher once back when I was streaming on Twitch, but booting it up again to get footage to kind of make the comparison. Honestly, Monster Rancher feels more like Umamusume than the Chow Garden. Monster Rancher has almost the exact same stats training screen, and instead of scheduled races, you just have scheduled tournaments. And the tournaments are just like more in-depth versions of Chow Karate. It's like one game echoes into the next. It's like poetry. They rhyme. And I'm just sitting there like, was I really just waiting for Umamusume? Like, I've been waiting for a Chow Garden like standalone title for so long, in fact, that we are actually having independent developers put these games out now. I mean, they're not out now, but in the future they will be released. So there definitely is at least a small demand for this kind of game. I mean, I could just play Monster Rancher since that's standalone, but if you're not playing for the waifu, what's the point of Laifu? And people really get obsessed with this stuff. The one time I streamed Monster Rancher, I had a guy come in who basically knew everything about the game. Did you guys know Phoenix isn't even in Monster Rancher 1? So what was the point of the anime? Was it just a lie? Or was it just one big advertisement for Monster Rancher 2? So they would just never find the fabled mystery disc and release the Phoenix inside. What a joke. Really fun game though. It's kind of crazy to see how hard Umamusume has popped off. Like, for being a niche anime gacha game, it seemed like everyone was playing it. I didn't know this was not common knowledge anymore, but seeing people figure out what the glue factory meant was so funny. And it really has to be the culture around the game keeping people interested, because there's not really much to the gameplay itself. It mostly boils down to just pressing buttons and at least watching the races for a while until you've completed a bunch, and then just start skipping, which is kind of frustrating. Other gacha games in this sort of style usually have some kind of autoplay feature, but you kind of have to stay mostly involved with the training sections of the game. And I could see a lot of people dropping it here. I mean, skipping the race is kind of the autoplay, but you kind of have to commit to playing Umamusume, and the gameplay is really not the most engaging since it pretty much just boils down to pressing buttons. And if you're not really interested in min-maxing your stats or support cards, there's not really much here. But those magic moments, when you win a race by a hair, add something. They add something that no other game really has, except the ones I mentioned. The monster raising ones, not Regalia Lost. I think that's the point. I think that's what ropes you in. Or you're just a gambling addict. I've never even been like a sports guy, but I actually looked up horse racing. Like, the game was good enough for me to look into the sport it was based off of. And I watched a couple Kentucky Derby videos on YouTube, and another aspect of the game kind of started to make sense. In the real races, when the race was over, the jockeys were just patting each other on the back, giving each other fist bumps. There was a lot of sportsmanship. It's not like hockey, where half the point of the game is to just beat the snot out of the other guy. So when in Umamusume you have a concert and the losing horses all dance and sing for the winners, it kind of makes sense. The sport, at least from what I could gather, has some of that sportsmanship. Because without context, it kind of doesn't make sense, but if you see it a little bit, you know, it's all just for the love of the game. Now, am I actually going to go to a horse race? I might. Umamusume has kind of lit that fire. Like, I'm not a sports guy at all. But after playing this game, going back to check out the Chow Garden, looking into Monster Rancher again, like, really? Has it been horse racing this whole time? Is that really what I've been missing from my life? Maybe. Maybe I'll go. I'd definitely go if we had horse karate. Thanks for sticking around if you made it to the end. Not a long one here, just wanted to do a little bit of a quicker video. Wanted to try a different style of scripting. Pretty much just jot down some points and kind of record my initial feelings instead of, you know, scripting it and then like recording it and then trying to get that initial sort of energy again. Because I don't think my scripted stuff is that great. I think I work a little bit better, a little bit more spontaneous, and then I can just kind of re-record or add on to something if I feel like I didn't get the point across. That's gonna be it for this one. Y'all know the spiel. Leave a comment if you want. Like, subscribe. I'm just gonna go now.